Iwatani Naofumi was a 20-year-old second-year college student. He considered himself an otaku, but he's actually good-looking and takes a bath every day, unlike most of y'all Kaled spawn weirdos and creeps. One day, as he looked around the books, he came across a book named The Records of the Four Cardinal Weapons. Intrigued, he opened it up and started to read. It was about 4 heroes who would be summoned to save the world from apocalyptic clash of clans raid destruction. Each of them wielded a characteristic weapon: a sword, a spear, a bow, and a shield. The prophesized wave that was the world's demise would bring it to an end. The ancient dragon Hourglass predicted the arrival of the next wave. The first wave, before the heroes were summoned, almost ruined the world, but the knights were able to fend it. It was known that the next wave would be a lot stronger, so they needed topless heroes with magical abilities and nothing but their Greek towels below their waists. Currently, less than a month is left until the next wave. Suddenly, the book started to glow, and the library shelves around him started to distort into nothingness. He fell through a portal and entered a new world. The robbed figures were happy that the summoning ritual was successful and immediately begged for them to save their world. Naofumi was in utter shock because the people don't speak English or Japanese, but somehow he can understand them. As he turned to the side, he saw 3 other boys around his age. They all carried weapons and were called heroes. Unlike Naofumi, the other 3 were bold and confident. They demanded accommodation for their efforts and a safe return to their world. Naofumi was confused because they seemed more well-informed and knows what they want better than what he can do for the rest of the season. Before the robbed people could agree to their demands, they were expected to have an audience with King Altcray of Melremark. As they came face to face with the king, he asked them to introduce themselves. Ren, the sword hero, was a 16-year-old high schooler. Motoyasu was 21 years old and a college student who wielded a spear. Itsuki was a 17-year-old high schooler as well who held a bow. Before Naofumi could introduce himself, the king tells him to shut the hell up. He was treated as if he's a war criminal or something. He called out to the king for his introductions, but the king could not care less. The king explained the situation and how desperate he was to save his kingdom from the wave's destruction, and only the 4 cardinal heroes were their hope, except for Naofumi, of course. Naofumi was shocked at how the situation resembled the book he was reading. They were promised they would be rewarded handsomely. After they successfully repelled the waves, they all have an agreement with the king. The king then asked them to check their stats, cause that's what you do in an isekai RPG. As they checked it, they all were on level 1. To defeat the monsters, they needed to level up their magical abilities, to use the weapons, and yes, that includes Naofumi's shield, which is, well, both weapon and an armor. The king advised them to leave on separate adventures to develop and upgrade their legendary weapons. Naturally, the weapons repelled against one another, so they needed to train individually. Working together would hinder their development. The weapons come with Duolingo installed to help them translate whatever they need for the journey. Before they left for the adventures, they were told to rest for the night. At night, they gathered in one room to discuss the situation. Naofumi pointed out that it felt like a game, and each of them had their versions of games. After asking general knowledge questions to each other, they found out that they were from different versions of Japan. It was like a parallel universe. It turned out only Naofumi was unfamiliar with this type of game. They all stared at him and informed him that it could be because he was a shield hero. It was like the plot of Steins Gate, minus the time looping BS 302. No high-level gamers ever chose a shield hero because it was not in the meta. Naofumi thought he could use this as an opportunity to party and stay away from potential dangers. Besides, what could a shield do in times of danger except for defense or shield bashing or shield throwing? Has this idiot otaku never watched Captain America? The following day, the king summoned them to witness the assembly of warriors who we will not see again for the rest of the show, except when the plot needs them. They were going to fight alongside them during the wave. Naofumi caught the eye of a pretty redhead among them. Before Naofumi could process what was happening, the warriors started to move towards the heroes. It turned out that the warriors were the ones choosing their hero of choice. When Naofumi opened his eyes to see his party, he was disappointed and confused no one had chosen him, the hero who didn't bring a deodorant. Naofumi asked if anyone would like to join his team, but none was bothered. If they forcefully tried to break up teams, morale could be destroyed. Naofumi was enraged at the injustice. How was he supposed to get stronger if he's alone? He's never heard of solo leveling before. From Motoyasu's team, a girl raised her hand. She was the same one who caught Naofumi's eye. She asked to join the Shield Heroes team, and Motoyasu had no objection. Unfortunately, she was the only one to join him. The king took other measures to ensure the Shield Hero was compensated for the low team members. He needs to recruit his team and was given an extra 2,000 V-Bucks for this task. The king told them to procure the necessary equipment for their journey and bid them farewell. Outside the castle, the other 3 heroes said their goodbyes to Naofumi, as they'll be working together to sabotage whatever progress Naofumi made. But Naofumi doesn't know this. The girl who joined his team introduced herself as Mine Sophia. She seemed open and friendly, and Naofumi was glad to have her in his team. He made it his responsibility to keep her safe. Big mistake, and we'll see why. Naofumi wanted to check the shop that sold armor and weapons, and because he had extra money, he could buy equipment. She took him to the shop she trusted. The shop owner welcomed them and remarked on the dog water PE teacher look that Naofumi is sporting. He then realized that he was one of the heroes, and by looking at the shield, he thought he was a cosplayer. Embarrassed, Naofumi was not sure how to go about it, but he did not want to seem weak, so he confidently introduced himself. The owner did not care if he was a shield hero or something, because he only cares about the motion, and he got no time for no motionless fools. Mine asked the owner for some equipment. When presented with swords of high-class level, Naofumi tried to pick up one of them, but the swords literally tell him, "Nah, bro, you ain't a real G." The help message tells him he's an idiot and can't read because he's literally called a shield hero, not some fool called sword and shield hero. That's for Monster Hunter. He was holding a non-assigned weapon and thus violating the legendary weapon rules. The owner used his appraisal magic to check its status, but it was off the charts, meaning he'll be OP in no time. Since they can't buy the sword, Naofumi just bought this garbage armor, which I don't even know what it'll protect him from. The next day, he was in the fields to beat some low-level balloon monsters. They were small and fragile, and this guy took hours to beat 5 of them. But he did notice one thing. When they bit him, it was not painful as the shield would activate, granting him active defense. He saw Ren on the side, doing some bootleg Kirito moves to kill the same monster, and how easily he could slash them with his sword. He then used the fragments of the monsters and fed them to Shield, who absorbed it immediately. But he needed more fodder before he could upgrade it to a new shield. Naofumi believed that it would evolve once he leveled up. Mine and Naofumi, satisfied with the day's adventure, went back to the weapons shop. They could go farther to battle if she were able to have new equipment, instead of being a pillow princess doing absolutely nothing. There, as he had warmed up with the owner, he bargained to reduce the price of the equipment Mine was going to buy. At last, the owner agreed to sell it for 480 coins, although it was a lot, as Naofumi would be only left with 200 coins. But she assured him that once she was stronger, she could hunt more monsters and sell them for a higher price. Naofumi had no other choice but to comply, cause the redhead girl is cozying up to him, and he ain't saying no to that baddie. That night, they both had a good meal, and although Mine asked him to spend more time with her drinking, but he was tired and wanted to have a date with his right hand before he heads to bed. Before leaving, they planned for the next day's adventure. It was a dungeon for rookies to level up. He said he was grateful for her joining his team and went to his room. He was excited for the next day and calculated his finances, which are absolutely in shambles after spending it like a casino gambler to butter up his redhead hoe. Naofumi woke up to find all his belongings gone, including his chainmail and clothes. He ran to Mine's room, but she was nowhere to be found. As he banged on her door, knights appeared, informing him that the king had summoned him. Naofumi was dragged before the king and saw Mine in front of him trying to act scared and hiding behind this blonde dude whose name I already forgot. They all looked at him like he was a criminal, because that was what he had become in a single night. Mine had accused him of assaulting her the night before while he was drunk. Scared for her life, she found Motoyasu was staying at the same inn and rushed to him for help. Naofumi noticed the chainmail that was stolen from him, which is what Motoyasu is wearing now. Enraged, he knew it was a setup against the shield hero. In this world, this offense was punishable by death, but because he was a hero, he could not be executed. Naofumi asked them for evidence if it was true, and then one of the knights pulled a piece of clothing that belonged to Mine and told everyone that it was found in his room. The other heroes had also turned against him as the piece of clothing got Naofumi cooked in 17 different styles. He was confounded and enraged at the injustice that befell him. He then saw Mine make a taunting face at him, which confirmed his suspicions. Motoyasu and Mine collabed to be his ops, just to bring him down and destroy him. She had been calling him Sir, while she called Motoyasu by his name. It was evidence enough. But no one was going to believe him because he ain't got no phoenix right to defend him. Infuriated by it all, he was also disgusted at their filthy schemes. No one believed him, so why should he fight for them? So he asked the king to send him back to his world. They thought he was escaping from the punishment because he was guilty, but he did not care for their opinion. Although the king wanted to kick him back into his world, he was bound. Unless all the cardinal heroes died or they successfully overcame the waves, they could not leave. Mad with rage, he said he's locked in and will carry the whole fight on his own. His shield started to glow a strange blue color, giving him some ultra instinct powers for 1 second. He was not going to be jailed for his falsely accused actions, but he was banished from the castle, and the news of his assault was already circulating among people. This was his punishment. He could not live a decent life anymore, as the people would be against him. Before leaving, he threw away the rest of the king's money he had stashed. Motoyasu, annoyed with his attitude, came to grab him, But Naofumi did not have a minute to waste on him because he was weak and needed to train. Just like that, all his money, respect, trust, and woman are gone. Started from the bottom, ended up at the bottom, gaming. As he was walking around the market, the sword shop owner called out to him from the side. He was about to strike Naofumi for what he did to that girl, but he saw that Naofumi is locked in and is now on mewing streak day 1, so he stopped. Annoyed, Naofumi asked if he was going to slap him, but the owner changed his mind, and he gave Naofumi a parting gift, a green cape which would become his signature color, before telling him not to pick up an underage slave raccoon girl outside the city. Naofumi promised to pay him back someday and left. While walking around the city, tired, a slave trader approached him. He asked to show Naofumi around his den of various kinds of slaves. One slave caught Naofumi's eyes. It was a demi-human slave named Raphtalia. She was a childlike girl with horror-filled eyes, because she is a child who will be groomed to be Naofumi's sword and shield hero. To do so, he had to undergo a ritual involving the mixing of his blood with a special ink, marking her as his slave. The trader utilized the unique concoction to encircle her existing slave mark on her chest. While the process proved painful for Raphtalia, it concluded within a matter of minutes. It was done so she couldn't defy Naofumi. Naofumi paid the trader 30 coins for her and an extra for his commission. How did Naofumi get the stacks? Nobody knows. He demanded to know her name, and she let him know in a fearful voice. He took her hand and left with her. He went straight to the sword shop owner and asked for a weapon that she could use. After changing from tattered slave clothes to proper slave clothes and a strapped dagger on her waist, Raphtalia is sort of battle-ready. Naofumi asked her to kill the balloon monster he had brought. She was scared to do it at first, but he ordered her, which she could not defy as the slave crest started to electrify her. She was only hurting herself by refusing to kill the monster, so she mustered up some courage and went at it. She was too weak to kill it, and Naofumi asked her to do it again with her heart. And this time, she was successful. She gained some experience, and through her, he did too. The owner told her it was because he set her as a companion when forming the pact, which he did not do with mine. Naofumi got a sour taste in his mouth after hearing this bee's name, but he quickly told Raphtalia to fight monsters for him. With a strict tone, he asked her to recoup all that he spent on her. That night, she started to have a nightmare. It was when her parents sacrificed their lives so she could survive during the first wave when they were being chased by a 3-head monster. She woke up frantic and screaming for her parents. Naofumi came to her rescue and hugged her so she would calm down. The next few days, he treated her with kindness and gave her proper meals and a nice haircut. Even when she would wake up from her nightmare and wet the bed, he would without complaint clean it up for her. Since Naofumi was a shield hero, he could only defend and not attack, so he trained Raphtalia to kill for him, so he could stay in the back seat as the groom hero. Some weeks later, Naofumi's shield gained so many skills and abilities that he started to lose count. Now, Raphtalia was grown into a pretty lady, and the people around her started to treat her as if she's a 7-year-old who suddenly turned 18. The owner tried to bring up the topic of laws against Pokémons, which Naofumi was unaware of, but Raphtalia quickly changed the topic. She wanted them instead to focus on the task at hand, to acquire armor. She was quick-witted and asked the owner for a discount after she liked an iron sword she tried. They had a budget of 180 coins. For Naofumi, he showed full metal armor, which the knights wore. But Naofumi is like that Halo TV series actor who doesn't want to wear Master Chief's helmet. So the owner told him he's just going to make a custom one. The next day, when he tried on the armor, Raphtalia was impressed by how perfectly it suited him. It was called the Barbarian Armor, and it was in his signature color, green. Although Naofumi thought it made him look like a villain, he accepted it because it was made especially for him. Suddenly, they heard a crowd gathered nearby. When they reached the area, they saw some knights passing by, and people seemed on edge. It was due to the impending wave. Naofumi wanted to know the day and location of the wave so he could be ready, but the owner was shocked that no one had told him about the Dragon Hourglass. He explained that when the last grain of sand in it falls, the heroes and their parties would be sent to where the wave begins. It was inside a church, so Naofumi and Raphtalia visited it to see it. It was huge, and as Naofumi went near, his shield used its power to see the time remaining. Suddenly, he was greeted by the other 3 heroes, who called him a furry lover and a groomer. Naofumi's mood shifted abruptly, and he felt something rising within him, and it's not his shield. He still kept on walking, but once he saw Motoyasu trying to flirt with Raphtalia, he was annoyed. He was asking her to be with him so he could protect her. But Raphtalia pulled away because she swore to fight alongside Naofumi. Naofumi turned around to take Raphtalia away. Feeling that his charm was not working, Motoyasu called behind them and asked Raphtalia if she heard the rumors. It was enough to stop Naofumi in his tracks, but seething with anger, he walked past them all. The day of the wave arrived, and as the last grain of sand fell in the hourglass, Naofumi and Raphtalia were teleported to the place. The sky had turned red, and strange portals appeared. It was the wave of catastrophe. Zombies and bee-like monsters were coming in crowds upon crowds. Naofumi saw the knights running towards the place of portals, but there was a village of Lute, which still had people inside. There was not enough time for the knights to evacuate the people, so Naofumi took it upon himself to help them. Without any hesitation, Raphtalia followed. The zombies and monsters were terrorizing the villagers, and Naofumi reached in time to save one from being attacked brutally. He tasked Raphtalia to evacuate the people to safety, whilst he lured them away from people. Naofumi punched one of the zombies, so he diverts its attention away from people and onto himself. And, on his way, he would protect the villagers by using his shield's powers. He was also conflicted. Why was he helping strangers with his life on the line, instead of killing enemies with his life on the line? Raphtalia was busy escorting the people out of the village, and she was successful in saving many of them. However, Naofumi swiftly recognized the overwhelming number of monsters. In a strategic move, he devised a plan to lure them all toward a large tower. He climbed the tower and started ringing the bell, which got all the attention of all monsters towards him. The tower started shaking as the monsters climbed up, but now he was stuck and couldn't find a way out. He poured fuel over the monsters and the tower, and he lighted everything on fire. He used a rope and jumped from the tower, landing in a safe place just as the flames roared out behind him. Naofumi was approached by the villagers who wanted to help him defend their village after his heroic actions. But before they could do anything, another monster came to attack. It was that dude from the Iron Giant film, but he's a Decepticon now. It swung at the villagers, and Naofumi defended them twice. One villager tried to attack it with a weapon, but it was useless. Naofumi was protecting with his shield when Raphtalia came with the clutch. She attacked the monster, and with Naofumi's shield, they successfully eliminated it. The villagers thought it was best for them to evacuate because they were getting glassed by monsters like crazy. Suddenly, there were artillery fire, and it started to rain down on them. It was an effort by the knights to attack the monsters, but they did not consider the villagers being harmed. Naofumi, using his shield protection, encased himself and Raphtalia inside. The knights were successfully able to kill the monsters at once, but they kept coming. The commander of the knights saw the shield hero and approached him. Raphtalia was furious, and without hesitation, leaped to attack the commander. She wanted to know if they knew the groom hero was at the epicenter of chaos. Depending upon their answer, they'll get their heads skewered like barbecue or spared with broken ribs. But Naomi stopped her from attacking them. But one of the knights began to taunt them. This pissed Naofumi off, and he was ready to watch them become fodder for the monsters as one of the giants came up behind them. But being the good person that he was, he rushed to deflect the attack, and with Raphtalia, they swiftly eliminated the monster. Raphtalia was able to easily kill a few other monsters in the vicinity, and watching them, the commander opted not to spare his troops from them, so he ordered them to leave with him. They were going to assist the other bum heroes because they're bums, duh. The now-in-charge knight asked his troops to form a phalanx, a defensive formation. This was an effective way of fighting the monsters, if there were 256 of them, because they could attack from all sides. After a few moments, the sky began to clear up. They had won the first wave with only a few unfortunate yet acceptable casualties. It was all thanks to the shield hero who kept the villagers before anything else and saved their lives. The villagers gathered and approached Naofumi, expressing their gratitude and acknowledging that without him, they might not have survived, instead of just offering him money and hot women. Despite their appreciation, Naofumi, not feeling particularly amiable, turned away. Raphtalia was happy they were able to prevent many kids from having the same fate as her. Having vanquished numerous monsters, Raphtalia found herself overcome with emotion, tears welling up in her eyes. However, as Naofumi approached with a gentle smile, he commended her for her exceptional performance, offering words of encouragement and praise. The Dragon Hourglass flipped and began the countdown for the next wave. The king called out all the heroes to celebrate their victory. With good music and delicious food, they all were enjoyed until Motoyasu came up to Naofumi. He wanted to fight for Raphtalia. He tried to turn people against him because Naofumi had enslaved a demi-human. He challenged Naofumi to a duel by throwing hands. If Motoyasu won, Raphtalia would walk away as a free being, and if Naofumi won, then things would remain as they were. It was a ridiculous idea for Naofumi, so he walked away, but the king insisted they dueled because having a demi-human as a slave was wrong, according to PETA or something. Now the party had turned into an arena for a battle between the groom hero and the bum hero. The winner would be decided until one of them surrendered or was pinned down. The battle began, and Motoyasu went straight for an attack, and Naofumi perfectly blocked it. Naofumi told him that he lost the moment he could not pierce his shield with his spear. With a push, Motoyasu went flying. Naofumi then used an airstrike shield to knock the air out of him, and then a shield prison to lock him inside a chained ball. Naofumi also brought the balloon monsters to attack, as he had no other way of attacking, which was technically a cheat, but he did not care. As it was clear that Naofumi was going to win, Mine used her bee magic to sabotage him. Motoyasu then hit him with spear lightning, which brought Naofumi down. He declared victory to the cheers of the crowd, and when Naofumi argued about Mine's sabotage, the king dismissed it and declared Motoyasu the winner. Approaching Naofumi, Mine expressed satisfaction at witnessing him fight alone once more. With a sense of certainty settling within him, Naofumi realized that it had been a calculated scheme from the start to undermine him. The daughter, Mine, framed him while the king distorted the facts for her sake. Raphtalia slapped Motoyasu, and it came as a shock to everyone. She told him that she did not consent to Motoyasu's savior complex. Motoyasu tried to reason that she had to be groomed and abused by Naofumi, but it fueled her anger. Naofumi was the kindest person to her. He kept her fed and treated her with expensive medicine, and if Motoyasu were as good as he claimed to be, then he would have a slave by his side too. It was a blow to Motoyasu and his team. After that, Raphtalia went back to Naofumi and hugged him. The following day, they returned to the slave trader, where a deal was struck with Naofumi that proved irresistible. For 100 coins, he gambled his money for an egg from the Monster Egg Lottery, with a guaranteed chance of hatching a Filolial, which is a legendary oversized chicken. The trader assured him that if raised properly, the Filolial's value could quintuple. Upon returning to his quarters, the egg began to crack, and soon a Filolial emerged. Naofumi became the first thing in sight for the newly hatched Filolial, whom he named Philo, and she refused to leave his side. In just 2 days, she grew tremendously, just like Raphtalia here. One night, as they camped in the wild, Naofumi was going to keep watch while Raphtalia and Philo rested. Philo came to sleep next to him, and due to the comfort and warmth of her feathers, he fell asleep as well. In the morning, he was awoken by Raphtalia, who seemed concerned. As it turned out, Philo could transform between a bird and a walking arrest warrant for Naofumi. Shocked Naofumi was greeted by her in a little girl's voice. "I can no longer defend this man." He then took her to the sword shop owner so he could help her with armor. Upon arriving, she saw the sandwich at the table and asked the owner if she could take a bite because she was hungry. Thinking she was just a little girl who would take just a small bite, he allowed her. But Philo transformed into her full-size bird form and gobbled up the sandwich. Naofumi was mad at her informality, but he treated her nicely, as she was just a girl learning. According to the slave trader, Filolials have a king or a queen leading each flock, and those leaders were highly skilled at transforming and also could blend themselves into the flocks by disguising themselves as normal Filolials. To be tamed, they needed a special crest, which was expensive. During the crest ritual, Philo got scared and resisted the process, thinking she'll gonna turn into the first ever Filolial rotisserie. But the process is successful, and now Naofumi had access to her level status. Once on the road, Philo was turned into a glorified Temu sweatshop workhorse, carrying Naofumi and his raccoon girlfriend, when suddenly a group of robbers blocked their way. They wanted the accessory seller to be handed who was hitching a ride with Naofumi. Knowing they would not go down easy, as they were likely to take everything away except their lives, Naofumi thought of throwing hands. They wanted Raphtalia as well, which made her mad. She asked Naofumi if she was allowed to fight them. Naofumi knew she could not be stopped, even if he said no. It was also a great opportunity for Philo to show off her powers. Raphtalia used her conceal magic to hide herself in plain sight, while Philo used Yap magic to create a strong Yap Nado. Together, they were able to tie up the robbers within seconds. To be able to buy clothes for Philo, they had to make some bread, as being a decent slave master is kind of hard for business. In the days that followed, they spent traveling from town to town, making some more bread. After securing enough funds, they went to a seamstress who customized a beautiful dress for Philo, which complemented her wings and blonde hair. Although Raphtalia was getting envious of her close relationship with Naofumi, she did not show it. After traveling for many days, they decided to return to the capital. On their way, they came across a girl who was among numerous Filolials. She was alone, and Naofumi thought of striking a chord, but it's probably a minor. Again, she introduced herself as Mel. When she saw Philo, she was taken aback by her huge size and her ability to talk. Noticing their developing friendship, Naofumi decided to let them play, as he and Raphtalia are going to be playing a different kind of game. Mel followed Philo when she came into the inn. She asked Naofumi if she could travel with him to the capital, because she had gotten separated from her people while playing with the Filolials. But Naofumi asked who she was, as he doubted her story. Could be one of those lying, backstabbing redhead scums again. She apologized and came out with the truth. She was the first in line to the throne of Melromark, Melty Melroark. Younger than Mine, Raphtalia inquired how she could be ahead of her sister. She explained that it was because her sister was the problem child due to her personality. Naofumi, who had experienced it firsthand, knew exactly what she was talking about. Melty was given the task by the queen to return to the capital and admonish the king for his unjust treatment of the shield hero. In reality, it was the queen who ruled the kingdom, as they're a matriarchy, and the king is basically a glorified regent. When the queen heard that Naofumi was mistreated by the king and his subjects, she wanted it to stop. After arriving at the capital, Melty promises to talk to the king. After some time, she returned to Naofumi as he was camping on the outskirts of the capital. Naofumi was surprised to see her with many guards behind her. She came to bring Naofumi to the king to meet him once more. He refused, as he at once was hit with the reek of some nefarious setup, and he ain't gonna be humiliated like he's some Chinese dog. He then saw one of the guards running behind Melty with a sword drawn. He was coming straight for Melty's head. He, with quick reflexes, pulled Melty to the side and blocked the attack with his shield. The guard then changed his tactics to blame Naofumi for taking Melty as a hostage. He ordered the other guard to eliminate the threat. Naofumi was done playing games and ordered Raphtalia, and Philo put these fools to a game over. Without wasting another moment, they both lunged to attack while he defended himself and Melty from attacks. Being on the losing side, the guards retreated. To be safe from all the threats, Naofumi found a spot in the jungle for them to camp for the night. Melty was still recovering from the shock when Naofumi came up from behind a tree with a Three Heroes Church rosary. He remembered that when the guards were fleeing, he captured one of them and questioned him about the attack on the second princess. But the guard was too stubborn to answer and called Naofumi a devil. He threw the guard back down on the ground, and that was when he found the rosary. The church was the state religion. They're like weirdly fanatical Christians and treats the shield hero as the Antichrist. Melty asked about what happened earlier, and Naofumi let her know that it was one of the king's schemes. Knowing her sister, Melty blamed her sister. But as the guards could only be ordered by the king, he was just as guilty. Naofumi knew that they wanted to frame the Devil of the Shield for this whole plot. Knowing there was no direct talking to the king, Melty took him and his party to the queen. The Queen Morelia Melromarc is smoking hot, and you'll even wonder how the king pulled her. Then, she explained her situation. She was taking part in an international forum for the upcoming waves. The forum decided that the major nations each would summon a hero, and together would fight the waves. But the king, in her absence, summoned the cardinal heroes himself for Melromarc alone. This angered the other nations, and to put the fires out, she was running around. The queen did try to keep them within their limits by appointing her most trusted lord as the decision-maker, but he was killed during the first wave. He was the Lord of Sayet. She elucidated that the king harbored a personal animosity towards the shield hero for absolutely no reason. And coupled with the church's manipulation, he had been exploited and misled. Man is just a professional hater, and he's not even employed. Mine then joined in on the assault. If Naofumi had been summoned to another country, he would have been treated very differently. Siltvelt, for example, practiced demi-human supremacy and worshipped the shield hero. It was better if he went there. And the queen had no right to stop him if he wanted to leave, but if he stayed, she would clear his name in her kingdom of all charges. She asked if he would come to the royal castle the next day to clear his name before the public. He agreed and went to the castle. In front, a huge crowd was gathered, and when led inside, he came face to face with the other three heroes. The minister asked the four of them to enter the court. The other three cardinal heroes inquired about the king and Mine when they saw the queen sitting on the throne. She ordered the guards to bring the criminals in. It was the king and Mine chained up, and everyone was shocked. The public was granted access to a watch party through which they could observe the trial of the king and the first princess. Mine began to act all innocent, and even the king questioned her outrageous behavior. The queen, without paying heed to their pleas, told everyone that in the presence of the cardinal heroes, the trial sought to punish the ones responsible for shaking the country to the core. The queen was the sole judge and executioner. The king tried to blame Naofumi for brainwashing the queen, but he was stopped by the queen's ice power. Mine was given a temporary slave crest to ensure a fair trial, as it allowed for only the truth to be spoken. It was necessary because Mine was a backstabbing, manipulative, insane, pathological liar, which meant she was able to manipulate the crowd. The trial began, and Mine was asked several questions. Some she answered the truth, until she denied being behind Melty's assassination attempt and framing Naofumi. Sensing the lie, the crest started to glow and gave this BA painful seizure to the point that she started to scream. She conspired with the church and tried to kill Melty so she could be the heir to the throne. To that end, she then framed the shield hero and even tried to burn the forest Melty. And the Naofumi sought refuge. Before she could deny it again, the crest started to hurt her. Now it was King's turn. He also conspired with the church to summon the four cardinal heroes while she was away. He explained that it was necessary to overcome the upcoming wave, but the shield hero committed the gravest sin by assaulting Mine. Mine was asked if she was indeed assaulted by Naofumi. She said it was true, but it was proven false yet again with the crest on her chest. Everyone was shocked at the revelation. The queen gave her final statement. They were guilty of high treason. They had used the dirtiest of tricks to eliminate those who opposed them instead of doing what was right for the kingdom and sought power purely for selfish reasons. He defended himself that he did to protect his nation from the Antichrist, Akeya Naofumi, standing next to them. He was considered to be the one to bring about the calamity of the royal family. Naofumi knew he had wasted his chance because the queen had reached a verdict. They were going to be stripped of all their status and executed immediately. There was going to be a public punishment. Although it was difficult for the queen to see her family beheaded, she put on a brave face and ordered the executioner to begin. If they did not agree, then he could have the death penalty. Despite the injustice done against him, he possessed a compassionate heart. Observing the king and the princess grappling with their struggles, he concluded that a lenient punishment would not suffice. He wanted them to live disgraceful lives, the king to be called trash, and mine to be called Drake fan, which is the worst thing you can call someone right now. The queen agreed with the proposal and told the public that the shield hero had granted the greatest mercy to his oppressors. The Three Heroes Church would also be abolished, and instead, a Four Heroes Church would be adopted as its state religion. This meant that all four heroes would be treated equally, and the public quickly agreed with the queen. Now, Naofumi, the shield hero, would not be considered an enemy. As he was going back, he was called by the other heroes. They asked if he would join the party, as the queen was going to give them medals and rewards. But Naofumi was not least bit interested in such decorations, but he wanted to work for the queen. He was not only going to work for Melremark, but with all the nations across the world. They were the four cardinal heroes and were there to save the world from the waves. Everyone agreed with him, and the queen was delighted to hear that. When he walked out, Naofumi saw the entrance to the castle crowded with people calling him their savior. He had nothing since the first day he walked through those gates. He lost his honor, money, and faith in others, but that suffering made him gain much more. He now has comrades he can rely on to protect everyone from the waves. Naofumi and his party visit the church's hourglass to upgrade their class. He initiates the ritual, and Raphtalia and Philo put their hands on the hourglass, which starts to glow brightly. This indicates that the upgrade was complete and successful. Later, they visited the queen and Melty, and they informed him that he would be taking the ship to Kalmyra for some important business. The harbor was a long way, and so they needed to hurry to reach in time for the ship to depart. This trip was planned so he could work hard and level up. Philo being the carriage driver, Naofumi was upgrading his shield when Raphtalia asked if they could take a short detour. It was her village that was destroyed in the first wave. Naofumi agreed, and upon arriving, he was shocked to see that the whole village was in shambles. Raphtalia first visited her parents' and childhood best friend's graves to pray. Keel, her other best friend, wanted the village the way it used to be before the wave, and she promised to do it. While Naofumi walked around to see the ruins, he mumbled to himself if there was a way to help the village. He then came across Lark and Therese, and they asked Naofumi his purpose of visit. He told them that he was just passing through. They too were on their way and bid him farewell and left. Now it was time for them to leave as well, and as they were on their way, Raphtalia asked if he would leave them as well. She could not imagine a world without him, and he assured her that he was not going anywhere. He could not leave the world in the hands of those three cardinal stooges. In his heart, Naofumi knew he could not leave until his party members found happiness. Later, they arrived at the harbor and boarded the ship. When they got to Kalmyra, Naofumi and his party leveled up by killing some monsters. The next day, they wanted to take a day off and rest at the beach. Soaking in the sun, Philo came up to him and told him about the island with the red glow on the seafloor she saw. This intrigued Naofumi as they had hit a wall with leveling up, so they needed something new. He took out his special penguin suits that helped to breathe underwater. After 10 minutes, they came to the Red Temple. After tapping his shield on the entrance door, it opened up. Due to air pockets, they were able to take their suit and walk across, when Raphtalia used her first light to light up the space. Upon illuminating, they were shocked to see the dragon hourglass. It resembled the one at the Capitol. It was shocking because any place with the hourglass could be attacked. And when his shield scanned the hourglass, it revealed that only 2 days were left until the next wave. Naofumi and his party quickly teleported to the castle and informed the queen about the upcoming wave. After learning about the situation, she, without wasting another moment, put together an army to fight the wave. It was likely that the wave would occur at the sea, so all the heroes along with their parties were on ships so they could be teleported to the wave when the time came. The ships were arranged by the queen, and she was also going to partake in the battle. Melty joined Naofumi's party for this wave. Naofumi tried to form a coalition with the other heroes, but they wanted to fight individually. Things were about to get ugly as the last grain of sand fell in the hourglass. Everyone was teleported to the island of Kalmyra. Giant portals were forming in the red sky, and monsters started to emerge. The army had an amazing idea to lure the sea monsters out of the water by bombing them with cask bombs made using kohol fruits. It was concentrated alcohol that worked as a drug, and the monsters started to float on the surface, which gave the army an easy target to shoot. Then an enormous sea monster appeared, and Itsuki was in charge of attacking it. Suddenly, a girl named Glass appeared, along with her two comrades. Naofumi ordered his team to fight her comrades Lark and Therese whilst he engaged in a battle with her. Like Naofumi, she was a vassal wielder, a fan hero. She used her powerful moves on Naofumi, which he was able to swiftly block with his shield. He then used a new shield skill, the Soul Eater, which caused tremendous damage to Glass by draining her life force. Glass was weak now, so Naofumi asked her to retreat so the wave could die down. The battle would not be over unless one of them died. She lunged to attack again, and Naofumi used the Soul Eater trick again. He asked her to stop or she would die, but she was stubborn and was going to fight for her world. She implied that Naofumi was like her, trying to protect their worlds. Naofumi was suddenly struck by the realization that he had been summoned to this world against his will and subjected to immense suffering. This prompted him to question whether he truly harbored the same desire to protect this world as passionately as she did for her own. He had a glimpse of her world, which was in utter chaos. Her people were fighting the wave in their world and waiting for her triumph to return. She was a fan hero from another world and was trying to save it, but defeating the heroes in this one. Would he crush her dreams just for the sake of this world? Lark then threw her a potion which healed her instantly. She attacked Naofumi, and he fell to the ground. Raftalia interfered to protect him. She didn't want someone to go through what she went through, giving Naofumi the courage to stand up for her and this world. He started to fight with his full might as well. A timer appeared to indicate 2 minutes that were left for the wave to be over. So, Glass was going to use her ultimate last move before the time ran out, and Naofumi also was going to use his shield power to the end. His reasons were that he could go back to his world after he finished fighting the wave, but Raftalia and Philo were the future, and he needed to protect them. As he began to cast a shield spell to get ready for her attack, he was interrupted by Lycia, a member of Itsuki's team. She used her curse to throw the cask bombs on Glass and her comrades. Naofumi blew up the bombs mid-air, causing the contents to fall on Glass. Glass immediately falls, and soon Lark and Therese arrive, telling Naofumi that they are going to retreat and that for this round, he was the winner. Unwilling, Glass was taken away, and the wave came to an end. The queen announced the victory belonged to everyone, and they all cheered. After the wave died down, Naofumi and his team decided to level up. He had an idea to recruit more people to his team. It was not guaranteed that they could defeat Glass's group the next time. While walking, Naofumi heard Philo shouting that one of Itsuki's members was drowning. Philo saved Rekia and pulled her back to shore. Rekia helped Naofumi during the last battle, but it turns out that she got expelled by Itsuki because she was blamed for breaking his accessory. Naofumi figured the party members were jealous of Rekia's contribution during the wave and framed her. Rekia felt that she was a weak and useless creature doomed to die, but then Naofumi's words comforted her. She had really saved everyone, and he encouraged her to join his team, to which she humbly agreed. Afterward, they boarded the ship back to Merrimark. He talked to the queen about the plans and how useless the other 3 heroes were. He needed to talk to them and come up with new tactics. The queen then asked what he would like as his reward. He had an idea and made his way to Raftalia's village. Raftalia had no idea why they had come back, but Naofumi explained he now had all the rights to govern Sayete's demi-human regions. That was the queen's reward. Naofumi was now the lord of her village. It was an ideal home base for him to train recruits. He did not want to stay in the capital because of the risk of running into the former king and princess. As Raftalia was the fishing expert, he gave her the responsibility of running the fishing business so the village could sustain itself. People who knew Naofumi after he heard he was the lord of the place insisted on joining him and providing their services. Naofumi had chosen this place as a symbol of resistance against the waves. Raftalia saw the tremendous transformation her village was undergoing, and it made her emotional. She broke down crying and asked if Naofumi was doing that because he was going to leave them. She could not imagine a world without him. Naofumi understood that it had been eating away at her and asked for her forgiveness. He knew he was wavering before, but now he was sure he was going to protect this world as its shield hero. He found the meaning in fighting the waves, stand up for his friends. So it was going to be their starting point for a new life. Naofumi had a new purpose in life, to protect everyone he had met in this world. He trained new members to join his army, and the rebuilding was going smoothly. He wanted to check the countdown for the next wave, but once he did, he was shocked to find that it had stopped, and instead, a number 7 was displayed. The queen summoned them 4 to the castle. The reason was singular to discuss the new bat-like monsters that were terrorizing the world. They were not the interdimensional monsters they had encountered before during the waves. It was just as the queen feared. According to their reports, there was a legendary monster called the Spirit Tortoise that had been revived. It was said to bring untold calamity to the world every few centuries. The other 3 heroes got up to leave because they did not want to be involved in anything other than the waves. Naofumi tried to stop them, but they did not listen. The queen wanted their help to take down the spirit tortoise, but by the looks of it, she did not have to ask them anymore. As Naofumi was still there, which the queen assumed meant he was to grant their request. Naofumi wished he could pretend he did not care as a cardinal hero, but he was not like the other three. The queen then explained the situation. The tortoise's kingdom was vast, and the beast had already crushed the outposts and dominions and moved towards Melromark fast. Naofumi agreed to take down the beast, which made the queen happy. Since the countdown of waves had stopped, it was best to utilize the time for this. The Security Council was in motion, and Naofumi was part of it. They discussed the position and location of the spirit tortoise and planned their best course of action. The spirit tortoise was stopped at the border, and according to the legend, would stay there for 2 to 3 days. Also, according to the legend, the spirit tortoise only attacks the most populated areas, and the next in line is the capital. Someone asked Naofumi about the 7-star heroes. Naofumi had never heard of them before, so the queen told him that they were the 7 wielders of the vassal weapons, besides the 4 cardinal heroes. Some were summoned from other worlds, and others were chosen. Although not as capable as the cardinal heroes, they could be of tremendous help against the spirit tortoise. Naofumi asked about their whereabouts, but they were interrupted by a cloaked woman. She was the consort and regent of the late king of the spirit tortoise kingdom. Her name was Ost-Hurai, and she was the human form familiar of the spirit tortoise. She explains the turtle can stop waves by collecting human souls. She and the other familiars deceive influential people. They spread around and try to create conflicts to collect souls. If that did not work, the familiars would attack to collect souls. And, if that failed, then the spirit tortoise would break its seal and get the souls directly. But this time was different. The seal was broken by someone, which caused the spirit tortoise to start the attack with the goal to destroy the world. To stop this, Harai needs the shield hero to kill it. Naofumi asked who had broken the seal, and she replied that whenever the humanoid familiars were exposed and defeated by the cardinal heroes, they were bound to reveal the method to break the seal. Naofumi was shocked to find out that they would reveal something that dangerous, but she argued that it was to protect the world from the waves. Naofumi was charged to revive the tortoise to gather human souls and suppress the flow of waves. That was the duty of the bearers of holy weapons, the cardinal heroes. It was most likely that the spirit tortoise was being controlled by someone who broke the seal. Naofumi asked for further details, but she started to troll them and provide them with answers they already knew. The council was getting impatient and started to argue among themselves about who was going to lead the operation. Naofumi, after several minutes of witnessing the argument, reprimanded them. He told them that was going to obey someone who was going to deal with the situation with the least number of casualties and not care about honor. He was ready to take down the spirit tortoise to protect his dominion. After that, he left the meeting. While marching towards the beast, Naofumi brought out his flag, which boosted the morale of his army. His team was sitting with him in the carriage while Philo drove it. Naofumi conveyed to them that currently the object served as a symbol of hope, but in the future, it would signify a warning to stay away. Out of the fog, they saw hundreds upon hundreds of bat monsters. So Naofumi moved away from his army so he could divert the attention of the bats by using his shield power. Philo was in charge of speeding away as fast as possible so they would not catch up. Out in the corner, Naofumi saw the spirit tortoise walking towards civilization. Suddenly, Yetis emerged from the ground and Philo had to immediately stop. Naofumi ordered everyone to take down the familiars. Ost-Hurai amplified the gravity of the monsters and crushed them on the ground. It was a rare incantation that only a few monsters could use. This gave the rest of them an opening to attack and kill the monsters. Afterwards, they turned their focus on the spirit tortoise. Now, what was left was cutting off its neck. Because Naofumi was only accustomed to defending, he ordered Philo and Raphtalia to attack. Seeking higher ground, they both surged forward toward the immense beast, unleashing their powers upon its neck. Despite the tortoise's attempt to flee, Naofumi intervened, employing his shield's magic to deliver a deeper blow. Ost-Hurai also bestowed strength upon the holy shield, causing it to expand in size. Naofumi commanded his team to immobilize the spirit tortoise, and with Rekia amplifying their power, they severed its neck. But they had not yet managed to kill the spirit tortoise, and that was because Ost-Hurai was still alive. The spirit tortoise was her maker. If he were to die, then it meant she would die too. Naofumi decided to climb on the tortoise's back to find its weak point. He and his party reached the tortoise's back and found the entrance to a shrine. Ost told them to go inside and destroy the heart. As they made their way inside, Ost started to remember more about the tortoise. After a while, they reached a blue dragon hourglass with sand at the bottom. With the same strange number 7 on it, Naofumi still did not know what it meant. Ost explained that it showed the number of souls taken by the spirit tortoise. When full, it was supposed to create a barrier to protect the world from the waves. It was not the heart, but the number of souls harnessed and transformed into the spirit tortoise's power. Ost then touched one of the walls and led them to a direct path to the heart. Naofumi, after reaching, was stunned to see the giant heart, and suddenly they heard an evil laugh. His name was Kyo Ethnina, and he was amazed to find them here. He was the wielder of the book vassal weapon. Naofumi gave him an ultimatum to release the control he had on the tortoise and give back the souls he had gathered. Naofumi told him to go back to his world and do his dirty work there. But Ethnina told him it was impossible in his world. Ost told him that if he did not listen to them, then he would face resistance. The fate of this world was decided by the 4 cardinal heroes summoned. Because Naofumi ordered him to do something meant he was bound to listen. But Ethnina was not going to give up so easily and disappeared because the defensive system was activated. Naofumi used the meteor shield to protect them from the heart's attack twice. Philo used the opportunity to attack the heart, and Ost felt weak and encouraged them to do what they had to. Raphtalia also joined in on the assault, and with one strike, she was able to cut the heart in half. Ost was unconscious and had a dream that she was near a big blue glowing crystal, which caused her crest on the chest to shine. She knew something and started to cry. Everyone thought she died, but she opened her eyes and told them she was fine. This meant even with its head cut off and its heart destroyed, the spirit tortoise was still alive. But she found out something important, and after reciting an incantation, opened up a path to the deepest depths of the tortoise. Ost urged them to go inside because the spirit tortoise was about to revive. After reaching the big blue crystal, they found Ethnina again. He was surprised to see them come all the way here, which confused Naofumi and the others. After berating them and chastising them for their perceived incompetence, Ethnina told the group they could have simply defeated Ost earlier. The easiest way to defeat the spirit tortoise is by killing Ost, because she's the real spirit tortoise. The crest of Ost began to glow for the second time, and the same crest appeared on the blue crystal, the core. If Ost was a familiar, as she said she was, she would be under Ethnina's influence, like the bats and yetis. The ground started to tremble, which was the indication that the spirit tortoise's head and heart had regenerated, and a barrier formed over the core. Ost informed them that in order to crush the core, they had to once again destroy the head and heart at the same time. The regeneration was fast due to the many souls it had taken, and the souls it was using belonged to the 3 cardinal heroes, except Naofumi. Ethnina explained that the heroes were weak, but their weapons were really powerful, and that was what was being used as a source. He was going to drain them until they were dead and dry. Rechia Itsuki's former party member could not see that happening. Ethnina was going to use their life force to destroy the army outside and the royal court. Laser-like weapons were shot at the people, but they were blocked just in time by Fitoria, the queen of Philolials. She was able to telepathically convey the messages to Naofumi through Philo. She was going to aid the shield hero and destroy the head of the guardian beast, the spirit tortoise. Suddenly, Glass and her colleagues appeared to help Naofumi. While Glass was here to destroy the world, she would not resort to taking human souls, unlike what Ethnina was doing. Lark pointed out that Enina's vassal weapon would stop him from doing those things, but Ethnina had full control of it. He attacked them with his bird of flame, but Naofumi came in to protect them all with his shield. Philo and Raphtalia then simultaneously lunged to attack, but Ethnina had a protective barrier around him, which was impenetrable. It used the power of the 3 heroes and was causing immense strain on them, so they thought of falling back. Similarly, Fitoria was busy protecting the army and the queen, who were being attacked by the Tortoise. To let Fitoria concentrate on the battle at hand and not worry about them, the queen ordered everyone to retreat somewhere safe. Fitoria then telepathically told Philo to destroy the heart as she was going for the head. But before Ost could open up a path to the core, Ethnina used Spirit Tortoise's favorite specialty, the gravity attack. Under the overwhelming force of gravity, everyone found themselves unable to rise. To assert his own power and demonstrate independence from the hero's abilities, he utilized the stolen souls to increase the gravitational pull twofold. Ethnina came up to Naofumi and started to kick his head brutally. To everyone's astonishment, Rikia began to rise to her feet. Despite being deemed weak, she couldn't bear to witness Naofumi being pummeled. Determinedly, she approached Ethnina, who unleashed a barrage of attacks upon her. But she was not showing any signs of fear now. Her sole focus was berating Ethnina, who was getting worked up. Taking this opportunity, Ost used her powers to grant Naofumi strength. Naofumi manifested the Spirit Tortoise's power to create the world's most powerful magic. The All-Liberation Aura was able to release everyone from the shackles of Ethnina's gravity. Ost created a path for Glass and her comrades to the heart, and Naofumi sent Philo with them so they could coordinate the attacks with Vittoria. Naofumi was impressed with how well Rekia was able to manipulate ki after her training. She was the only one who was able to move under the supergravity attack. Rekia continued to criticize Ethnina and his attack tactics, which were simple and predictable, which was making him lose his mind. She was easily blocking every attack he was sending her way. Ethnina was on the verge of harnessing the power of the three heroes once more, but Rekia intervened, breaking his hold on them and liberating them from his grasp. Ost came up to Naofumi and asked him to kill her so this all could come to an end. Vittoria knew she had less time, as the rampant spirit tortoise was going to use the multi-caster ritual magic to destroy the entire city. So she used her ultra-speed power to cut through the head, while Philo and the others attacked the heart simultaneously and destroyed it. The barrier around the core broke down. But Ethnina had a backup plan and used the emergency measure to defend the Kori with the soul's power. Hesitant at first, Naofumi knew what he had to do. It was Ost who had the real core inside her, and she knew Ethnina was a deceiver and would have a plan to throw them off. All they had to do was kill her, and it would be over. With a heavy heart, he summoned the ultimate power of his shield to obliterate Ost, but he found himself devoid of the hatred necessary to unleash its full potential, resulting in failure. But Ost had a plan. She was going to use the power she had left within the shield to take form. This unlocked the spirit tortoise here shield. Naofumi underwent a transformation, sprouting wings, and his shield morphed into a weapon capable of targeting and launching attacks. He aimed at the core and attacked, which instantly destroyed it. Ost fell on the ground. Ethnina escaped by using a vial of soul power to make a portal. Naofumi asked Ost about the shield, and she said that the heart shield of the spirit tortoise has been unlocked for him since he didn't fall to hatred. Glass decided to chase Ethnina through the portal to capture him and get back the souls. Ost pleaded with Naofumi and his team members to leave her there. Naofumi reluctantly led away his party. On the brink of death, Ost prayed that she could shine light on the path that Shield Hero would take. The Spirit Tortoise Fortress started to fade away, and in its place, greenery began to sprout on the once barren land. After completing their mission, they returned to Ost's graveyard. As they scattered flowers into the wind, Naofumi caught a glimpse of Ost and was heartened to see her smiling down on them. With a sense of closure, he bid her farewell and continued on his journey. After checking the hourglass, Naofumi got to know that there will be a while before another wave occurs. After being gifted some land by the Queen, he wanted to build it up, but the Queen informed him that the other three heroes went missing, which was a problem, as they all were needed to defend against the waves. The Queen implored his help, which he quickly agreed to give to protect his lands. Naofumi then visited the slave trader and found out that many of the slaves were taken away from Melromark. Naofumi was trying to bring back all the scattered villagers of Luralona village, which caused the merchants and mercenaries to trade elsewhere. Naofumi thought if he was going to build his place, it would be easier with the people who lived there before and did not know about the consequences. He wanted to buy them all back, but their prices had gone up 100-fold. He still was ready to buy the demi-humans, so the slave merchant told him to head to Zeltobel. As the other heroes were missing, he needed more people to defend his lands. Melty assured him that she would take care of the newly bought demi-human slaves and train them. So Naofumi and his party set out for the journey. After many days, they reached the capital of Zeltobel. They directly headed towards the shop the slave trader recommended. It was a tavern and belonged to his uncle, who had the same sharp tongue and clever thinking. The man immediately recognized the shield hero and brought him inside. He showed Naofumi the underground area where all the illegal slave auctions took place. There were stairs that led to underworld auctions all over the city. Slaves whose ownership was forbidden in Melromark were being sold here. Naofumi was told that he was lucky because what he was looking for just come on that day. When at the auction, Naofumi saw that they sell a slave as some demi-human from Luralona, but Raftalia knew it was a lie. The Shield Hero's Luralona brand had value in trade. The girl was sold for 100 coins. Naofumi figured he had done everything right, but eventually people exploited his kindness and diligence once again. The slave merchant then told him about the real Luralona demi-humans and how he would make money at the city center Coliseum with him being a brookie. Naofumi goes into the bar within the Coliseum and sees a panda and an elephant preparing to fight. A beautiful woman came up to him and stood to watch as well. She already knew the outcome of the match that Panda was going to win. Just as anticipated, with one strike, the panda was able to defeat the elephant. Naofumi asked about the rules, but she asked for her drink to be paid first. Then other contestants showed up, Foal, who was a little mad dog of a tiger demi-human, and Yuji, who was a noble scion and master of blades. The odds were tilted in Foal's favor, but because the match was fixed, Yuji won, even though Foal was much stronger. Naofumi watched as Yuji told Full that he had enough, and then saw Full take damage and collapse to the ground. Yuji then passed Full something in a bottle, and Naofumi understood that it was related to money. The girl then told Naofumi that he could enter alone, or as a team of 3. The most popular thing to bet on was 3-on-3 team fights. She then got up and left. Naofumi then entered the arena with Raphtalia and Philo, and were up against 3 men. They planned to act all week, so the audience thinks they cannot beat them. The more they looked like the dark horse, the more money would be paid out if they won. At the right moment, Raphtalia cast a spell to obscure the arena, allowing the audience to see only what they wanted them to. With a fake sword, Naofumi lunged to attack, but he passed the first guy, so Philo could surprise attack. Similarly, they defeated the other 2 and acted as if they had a hard time. The audience believed them, and this was how Naofumi and his team, named Rock Valley, were able to break the winning streak of the Topax. One of the sponsors at the arena provided Philo with a weapon, which she effortlessly wielded upon receiving it. The sponsor's intention was for them to win matches and promote the weapon on his behalf. Rock Valley's next opponent was about to be announced, but it seemed like they all had forfeited. Later that night, Naofumi was sitting at the bar when he was approached by the same girl. She knew that he was not satisfied with the prize money, so he was even betting on himself. Naofumi asked if she was going to tell somebody, but she would not spoil anything. Instead, she asked for him to drink the night away with her. He drank the drink offered by her, and she was impressed by his high tolerance. He then agreed to walk with her in exchange for some information. As they walked, he asked if it was normal for them to announce the opponent right after the battle. She informed him that, according to the rules, if the teams forfeited, the opposing teams would win by default and would not get any matches for a while. Suddenly, some men emerged pointing their swords at Naofumi and Nadia. At first, Naofumi thought the men belonged to her, but he quickly realized that these men wanted them to die for the sake of their teams. Nadia began chanting a curse, and with formidable power, she cast a spell on the men, swiftly disposing of them. Naofumi was in awe of her lightning power, and she advised him to be careful of the enemy around. Before leaving, she prayed that they would not meet at the Colosseum. The next day, the other teams had forfeited, forcing Naofumi's team to fight against Griffins. Illusion magic made it look as if this was a hard fight, which then increased their betting odds and prizes. As they were eating at the inn, Rekia came rushing in, saying they were given their next opponent. It was a solo person. The next day, they all gathered at the Colosseum. The fighters were called into the arena, and everyone cheered for the Lightning Queen Nadia. Nadia reminded him of the advice, but the stakes were too high, so he was going to win. She then came closer to him and whispered that she knew the reason behind it. He needed a fortune to buy the slaves. Naofumi was shocked. But Nadia was not going to lose to people who only cared about money. The championship battle commenced, and Raphtalia and Nadia engaged in a fierce fight. Nadia cast her spell, but it was blocked by Naofumi's shield. He deflected it onto the roof, and it made a hole. Then Philo jumped to attack, but she was attacked with lightning. Naofumi was quick to protect her with his magical shield. When Philo lunged to attack again, she was hit with tremendous water pressure. The arena started to flood because the 2 sides moved too quickly. The field change effect took effect. It was the coral magic spell that temporarily submerged an entire area. Her sponsors wanted her to put on a good show. So she did. She transformed into a killer whale demi-human, her real form. Raphtalia was in utter shock and was frozen in one place, even when Nadia came to attack. Raphtalia just said a name, Nadia's real name, Sedina, and it made her stop in her tracks. When Raphtalia took her mask off, Nadia was able to recognize her as well. It was an emotional moment for them both. Nadia identified Rock as Naofumi, the shield hero. As the audience began to grow suspicious, Nadia decided they needed to provide a battle, so she attacked Naofumi, but he blocked her attack. She whispered to him that she knew he was buying slaves for the sake of Raphtalia and his lance. She moved back and told them it was time to end it. She was going to defeat them with her best move. Raphtalia told Naofumi they needed to give their best as well, and that Nadia would be able to take a hit. Philo and Raphtalia coordinated and collaborated on their attacks against the powerful wave. When everything settled, they found Nadia on the ground. She surrendered, but her sponsors concluded the match was invalid. She felt disheartened that all her hard work in buying the children back seemed futile, as they were going to be sold again. Naofumi told her that he was going to take care of it. Now, as the match was declared invalid, there was going to be an exhibition match between the 2 fighters who participated and a new fighter. The other fighter entered the arena. It was the dangerous murder clown. The battle began, and Raphtalia underestimated her opponent and rushed to attack, but the clown, using the spider web, caught her. Similarly, others were bonded with wire. Philo shifted into her bird form and attacked the clown, causing the bond to weaken. Nadia came up to Naofumi and asked him to cast a coral spell with her, the same way he did it with Ost Hurai. They needed to act quickly or his team would be in trouble. They chanted the spell, and it created a powerful lightning ready to be used. But instead of aiming at the clown, Naofumi aimed at Raphtalia, as it was a power-boosting spell. Raphtalia was relentless, launching a series of attacks on the clown. With her final move, she struck the clown, leaving it lying on the ground. However, it turned out to be just a decoy doll, as the real clown was standing unharmed in front of them all. The clown informed them that their base strength was lacking, and that if he were not the undefeatable hero, another world could easily overpower him. She pointed out that she was merely a weak adversary, yet they struggled to defeat her, indicating they needed to level up. Before disappearing, the clown warned them they would meet again. The commentator was about to announce Rock Valley and Nadia as the winner, but the sponsor showed up and told everyone that the match was inconclusive. There was a major incident of cheating involved. He revealed that Rock Valley was betting on themselves, using a fake name to win more money. But he was interrupted by the slave merchant and the department store owner. They stated that the Shield hero would receive both the prize money from the fight and the winnings from any bets, as he deserved. Hearing the Shield hero's name, the whole audience was in shock, even the sponsor. The shop owner also declared that Nadia was the rightful owner of the Luralona village slaves, which she purchased with her prize money. It meant that everything worked out for them all. Nadia called Raphtalia, and they both embraced each other emotionally. Nadia told her that she had heard a rumor about the Shield hero traveling with Luralona, a village demi-human. Nadia reintroduced herself as Sadina. She also thanked Naofumi for protecting Raphtalia and asked him to protect her as well. Naofumi returned to the slave trader, learning that in Siltvelt, he was revered as a god. While walking, Full called out, asking to be bought. Full's combat ability was exceptional, and Naofumi was surprised by his high level at a young age. White Tigers could upgrade their class level to 60 and even reach 120, making them second only to heroes. The trader wanted 120 gold coins for Full, which was too expensive. Full explained he had a blind, bedridden sister, Atla, who wasn't worth much. Full fought in the Colosseum to pay for her needs. Naofumi checked Atla's status and found she needed the elixir of Yggdrasil. After giving her a sip, she felt better. Naofumi decided to buy both siblings, adding 2 more slaves to his team. They went back to their village, where they met up with Sadina and the other slaves from Luralona village. The next day, he took Full and Sadina to the Hourglass so he could reset their levels and take advantage of his hero buffs. Now, Full and Sadina had to do rehab to make up for the lost levels. Unlike the status, whatever was gained during the training was not lost during the reset. The queen then summoned them to inform them they had found the spear hero, Motoyasu. He seemed to be searching for his lost comrades who parted ways with him after the Spirit Tortoise fight and were in a town near Melromark. The others were still nowhere to be found. Sword Hero's companions were dead. Another pressing matter was that of the Mine, who had disappeared and was blocking her slave crest to be located. The queen urged Naofumi to persuade the Spear Hero before the Phoenix revives. Although Naofumi made a promise to himself never to reconcile with the heroes again, due to some falling out, he had to listen to the queen. They made their preparations to go to the town where Motoyasu was last seen. Upon arrival, they saw the Cardinal Hero trying to beg an ex-party member to join them again, only to be told off, labeling him as a pathetic loser. He was no longer basking in his former glory of fortunes, but was now an average Reddit user. She told him to find new party members at the tavern. When Motoyasu turned around, he found Naofumi staring at him, but he bolted and disappeared around the corner. Later that night, he visited a tavern and found Ren in the corner. He ordered Philo and Raphtalia to look for Motoyasu while he caught up with Ren. Naofumi assured Ren that he was not there to arrest him, but to talk to him. Naofumi told him about Motoyasu and his attempt to gather the team members, which saddened Ren because his members all had died. Although bad at their deaths, he blamed them for it because they were weak and not his fault. Sensing the disturbance in Ren, Naofumi told him that he could still fight because there was not enough time before the seal broke on the Phoenix. Ren agreed to fight together, but their conversation was interrupted by Mine. She pressed Ren not to trust the shield demon and started to spin her web of lies as always. Mine was making Ren believe that he was the true hero and that others were all too weak to even save the world. Ren initially does not buy her lies, but after she shows him that her slave crest is not harming her, he starts to believe. Mine said that her mother, along with the shield demon, was stealing the throne away and humiliating her. Naofumi tried to argue that he was not behind the death of Ren's party, like she was saying, but he was pushed away. Mine told him everything that Ren wanted to hear, which turned him against Naofumi. Motoyasu also entered the tavern, asking Mine where she had been as he was searching for him everywhere. But she acted all innocent and scared. Ren was under her influence, which infuriated Naofumi. He could not believe how one person could lie so much, so he asked Ren who he believed. After Ren said he believed Mine and blamed Naofumi for all the tragedies, Naofumi erupted and started spilling the truth. That it was Ren's fault that his comrades died because he was treating everything like a video game. Ren was a failure, not just as a hero, but as a human being as well. Naofumi prompted him that he knew what he was supposed to do, but was too scared to face the truth. Mad with rage, Ren took out his sword. Naofumi was shocked that he was going to use a skill in the middle of a crowded building. But Ren was not stepping down. He used his meteor slash and destroyed the building when Naofumi deflected it with his shield. This showed that Naofumi was much stronger now. Knowing he could not defeat him, Ren, along with Mine, vanished using a portal. Motoyasu was flabbergasted after how Mine and the townspeople treated him. To help him, Naofumi showed him a method to get stronger and work with him. But after a while, Naofumi thought he was not ready to come with him. He was going to let the queen know of the situation and head back to the village. Back in the village, Naofumi learned of bandits terrorizing the people. He saw this as an opportunity to test their strength by hunting them down. He planned to divide his team and search for their hideout. He paired Philo with Rekia, Eclair with Foal, and Atla, and grouped Raftalia with Keel. He chose to go along with his pet. Naofumi knew the bandits' leader attacked people who were alone, so it was a great opportunity to take advantage of that. After walking for a while, Raf smelled something and took Naofumi there. He saw Motoyasu engaged in a fight with Ren, who was now wearing a mask. Upon finding him, Ren attacked Naofumi. While blocking, he sensed a familiar feeling. Ren was under a curse. His motive was only to get stronger than everyone, and his ambitions had no bounds. In a fit of rage, he launched a series of attacks on Naofumi because he now considered him an enemy. Naofumi noticed that his greed was driving him to seek treasure along with power and victory. That was his curse. Greed. Whatever the reason, the curse series had skills that had a high price every time they used them. Naofumi needed to stop him. When he implored about Mine, Ren started to get even madder, and his sword started to glow a purple color. Ren started to chant a spell that would behead his enemy, Naofumi. Chains started to emerge from the ground and bonded Naofumi, and a guillotine appeared. But Naofumi had had enough. He destroyed it in a second. Eclair emerged along with others to stop Ren, but Naofumi stopped anyone from fighting him. Ren then used all his riches to unleash a divine strike on his foes. A giant appeared to crush Raftalia with its bare hands, but Naofumi rushed to save her. But Ren was not stopping and ran with his sword towards Raftalia. Naofumi thought of binding him, but Eclair asked his permission to duel him. She wanted to snap him back to his senses. Eclair was far better with the sword than other men, so he trusted her completely, and he was going to cast a support magic so she could make up for the buffs. Eclair went up to him and challenged him, and Ren accepted. She proved to be stronger and more skilled, and even a hero was having a hard time defeating her. Eclair asked what he wanted to achieve after becoming the strongest, for which he had no answer. His aims were false, and his heart was in an indecisive state, which was causing him to panic and get angry. He plunged his sword into the ground and started to breathe heavily. His sword was spilling purple curse, and it started to seep into the ground. The earth cracked, and monsters started to emerge. Naofumi knew that his own curse was wrath, and Ren's was greed and gluttony, because he wanted to devour all power. It was like the 7 deadly sins. Eclair was easily able to kill all the monsters and was now going to end the battle. She attacked Ren with her sword, and he fell on the ground defeated. His curse was lifted, and he felt normal. 2 bandits came to attack, but they were quickly killed by Motoyasu. It shocked Naofumi that he was as quick as lightning. To purge their souls, Raftalia used her sword. Naofumi asked Motoyasu where he was getting his strength from, and Motoyasu responded that it was the method Naofumi had shown him. Naofumi was stunned that it made him that strong. Now, Ren and Motoyasu were in the team. Later, there was a rumor about an archer fighting in the underground coliseum. His name was Perfect Hidden Justice, which was an odd name, and it was worth looking into. Naofumi, along with Rekia and other party members, all arrived at an arena. He inquired the slave merchant about a contestant named Perfect Hidden Justice. Rekia saw a shadow of a person who she thought resembled the bow hero. She began to follow him, and others joined in as well. The person, wearing a hood, entered a room and took a seat, paying no attention to Rekia's cries. The slave merchant allowed them to enter the room, protected by the guards. Rekia entered and started talking to him, but he was in a trance and repeating to himself that everything was going to be all right. He called himself the Servant of Justice, and in a fit of rage, slapped Rekia and left the room. Naofumi took him by his collar and was shocked to see the look in Itsuki's eyes. They were full of hate towards him. Itsuki told him that he knew what evil things he was up to. He heard it from Mine himself. Naofumi told him to ditch Mine because she was pure evil, but he was not going to believe him. Ren advised him not to believe her either, as he had been freed from her web of lies. Itsuki was not listening, and for her sake, he was going to fight anyone. Rekia asked if she could fight Itsuki in the arena. It was her only way of talking to him. When they came face to face, Itsuki belittled him, saying she was a weak opponent. Itsuki aimed at Naofumi with his bow and said he was not going to forgive evil. Naofumi, using his shield, deflected the attack. Rekia came up to him to talk sense into him and remind him of the phoenix, but he started to count all the evil Naofumi was up to. He said that Naofumi was forcing his villagers to do heavy labor, and he was keeping all the money for himself. Everyone was shocked and knew it was a lie, as Naofumi was the most considerate lord ever. Itsuki recounted another event where he refused to save a son. Naofumi said it was because the son was already dead, and even being a cardinal shield hero had its limits. The legendary shield could not revive the dead. It seemed like Itsuki was obsessed with making Naofumi the worst person. Naofumi was furious and told him that he was a failure himself, as he could not protect the ones who died while defeating the spirit tortoise. Did that not count as one of his screw-ups? This shocked Itsuki. He believed he was changing the subject to escape from his crimes. Itsuki pointed the bow at him again and said he was not going to show any mercy. His bow transformed into the Justice Bow. He was going to show Naofumi how evil he was with this new, unlocked bow. He then aimed at the sky and fired an arrow that multiplied into many, scattering them around the arena. Naofumi used his shield to protect those close to him, but one of the arrows struck the MC. Rekia thought the person had died, but he got up and started to shout. He lied that he was secretly in service of the shield hero. Itsuki asked him to repent and change his ways. The power Itsuki was being affected by was of the Curse series. It was Mine, who had infused his weapon with the holy power through which he could make everyone understand him. He declared that he could save everyone by putting them on the path of justice. Ren realized that Mine got to Itsuki when he was still shocked after losing to the spirit tortoise. Naofumi arranged for everyone to leave the arena because he knew it was about to be dangerous. He then told Itsuki that his bow had nothing to do with justice. It just brainwashed them. Rikia broke the silence. She told him that she did not accept his justice. The Itsuki she knew taught her the real meaning of justice, helping those in need of help. They both engaged in a fierce battle. She was blocking every attack he was sending her way. She had become powerful. When she got too close to him, he became angry because he believed his sense of justice couldn't be thwarted by someone as weak as her. Itsuki then used a self-boost skill, and he transformed him. He was being blinded by his obsession with justice. His deadly sin was pride. Ren tried to stop him because any more power he used of the Curse series, he was going to regret it. To punish Rekia, he used his power to bind her and summoned a Phalaris bull that was going to kill her. As everyone thought it was over, the bull was slashed in half. She escaped the jaws of death and lunged to attack Itsuki. She hit his eyes. It was enough for him to transform into a demonic angel. He screamed that he was never going to forgive her and launched his arrows at her. Trying to defend herself, she broke her sword. Naofumi gave her a spare one, but she would not take it because she wanted to end it her way. Itsuki started to laugh because it was over for her. He aimed at her and shot her, but Rekia was not going to give up because that was what Itsuki taught her when he saved her from despair. She knew that justice never gave up. He considered her evil, but she argued that the opposite of justice was not evil. It was just another form of justice. Filled with rage, he fired at her again, but she remained unaffected. Instead, a pure, bright ki emerged from within the dark ki and moved toward Rekia. The cardinal weapons had some kind of hidden power, Naofumi thought. Itsuki was taken aback. His bow did not accept his form of justice, so it gave Rekia strength to fight and stop him. He thought it was impossible that his bow would betray him like that, but that was the truth. He released a giant bear towards her, which she stopped with her throwing technique. She then threw it at Itsuki in a form of different techniques, and it struck him. His demonic wings began to fade, and the holy power that had been empowering him dissipated. But he still thought Mine was with him and believed in him. He remembered the time she consoled him and gave him hope that he was the face of justice. He rushed to the location where Mine was supposed to be. But when he arrived, he found she had already left. She had left only a letter which Ren volunteered to read out loud. Mine had told him that she had spent all the prize money he had earned, and she humiliated him by mocking him, saying he must be enjoying himself by pretending to be a hero. She even left him a gift. All the debt she collected was to be paid by Itsuki. Angry with himself, he threw the source of the Curse series and shattered it and fell unconscious. When he woke up, he was in Naofumi's village. Rekia was next to him and held his hand. She informed him that Naofumi was going to help him pay all the debt. After that, they could go on a journey to make a world a better place. He started to cry silently. She then took him on a tour around the village. Naofumi informed the queen that he had no idea where Motoyasu was, but Ren and Itsuki were both in his village. The queen was happy with his great task of bringing all the four heroes together. She was prepared to do anything to reward him.